If you clicked on this video, you are most likely trying to find some players that will dominate late season that you can pick up for essentially free off of the waiver wire coming into week 9, and lucky for you, that is exactly what I'm going to give you guys in this video. So if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button real quick. It takes 2 seconds. Your fantasy team will thank you. But you guys know I absolutely hate to waste people's time in these videos, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the very first player we need to pick up off the waivers pretty quickly. Here is Chuba Hubbard, and you need to lock in on this one. Let me set the scene here. Miles Sanders was a full participant in practice all week coming into this matchup against the Texans, and we see a complete switch in usage. Miles Sanders gets 2 carries on the day compared to 16 for Chuba Hubbard. And if you look at the snap share, Chuba also dominates 45 to 12%, and this is not good whatsoever for Miles Sanders because this is coming straight off of the bye week. So this was no let's hold him just because of injury, make sure he's good, or just gonna switch the game plan for this week. No, this is off the bye week. This was planned. They had time to decide what they wanted to do with this backfield, and they made that decision, and it was Chuba Hubbard. Now, was he efficient? No, not necessarily, but neither of these running backs have been efficient all year. But Chuba Hubbard is going to operate as the RB1 for the rest of the season, as we saw last week, so he should be your #1 waiver claim. Sanders will still have a decent role in this offense. They didn't give him the 3rd biggest running back signing of the offseason last year for no reason. But again, Chuba has showed he is the RB1, and the staff has showed that he is the guy they want to go with, at least for a little over 50% of the snaps. I think it'll be a 60-40 split between the two, but Chuba is definitely going to be the guy we want moving forward. And he doesn't have the easiest schedule for fantasy running backs for the rest of the season, but it's not very often we get an RB1 on the waivers. And he dominated almost 100% of the 3rd down snaps, the short yardage, the receiving game, the 2-minute drill, literally everything. He was the guy this week with a fully healthy Miles Sanders. Pick him up while you can. Another guy we need to consider picking up off the waiver wire, a wide receiver this time that a lot of people have given up on, is Jahan Dotson. And he hasn't had the highest target share despite how much Sam Howell has been passing so far this season. But if we look at last week, he comes out with 10 targets, 8 receptions, over 100 yards and a touchdown. By far his best game. And do I think he's going to be a must-add off the waivers? Yes. Do I think he's going to be a breakout wide receiver that's going to be top 20 for the rest of the season? No. We knew all along that this was going to be a better game for Jahan Dotson. Now, if I said he was going to get 100 yards and a touchdown, I would be lying. But last time these two teams played in week 4, he had his highest target share. And the only reason I say he's not a top wide receiver moving forward is because Sam Howell threw for 400 yards and 52 pass attempts. That's not going to be that high usually. It's an insanely high clip, so it led to this entire offense seeing elevated numbers in yardage and receptions and usage in general. But he's still a guy we need to be adding, especially now with the Curtis Samuel injury. He's been getting wide receiver 2 snaps all season long. That hasn't changed, but now he's getting a bit more opportunity. This offense is going to continue to be pass first. Their defense cannot stop anybody. Their secondary is one of the worst in the league. They let up 40 points to the Bears, 30 points to the Bills, 30 points to the Broncos. I mean, they've been allowing points left and right. The passing volume is going to stay relatively high. 400 passing yards is not really realistic, but he's on the field, he runs the routes, he's going to be involved somewhat, and he is a great wide receiver add if you guys have an extra spot on your bench. Moving over to another guy, a running back here that we need to be adding, which looks like it's finally time to get him. I've been waiting for this to add him in these videos, is Charbonnet. He led the snaps for this backfield, 32 to 24. Now, if I'm a Kenneth Walker fan, I'm not super worried about Charbonnet becoming the RB1. If you look at the usage, it looks like he was this game, but Kenneth Walker was dealing with a calf injury coming into this game, which is probably why he saw lesser of his snap count. But this is a guy in Charbonnet that had pretty good college metrics and is increasing his snap share throughout the season this year, which again is expected. They drafted him early in the 2nd round for a reason. He's a great receiver. That was one of his strengths coming out of college and why they got him in the draft. And he 1000% has a path to relevancy in fantasy football. It was really only a matter of when, not if. And this is especially going to be true if Kenneth Walker's calf injury somehow lingers throughout a couple more weeks of the season. His receiving value alone is going to give him some decent PPR upside. So if you have an extra spot on your bench that you can use to lock him up for some late season upside, go ahead and do it 1000%, even if he isn't the most win now short term kind of waiver ad. But speaking of short term league winning upside, we need to be going through and grabbing our first tight end off the waivers. Probably the #1 ad for the tight end position, in my opinion, is Trey McBride. And the reason I say this is because Zach Ertz has found himself on IR and probably won't return until week 14 after their bye week if we're being generous. And I don't really need to say this because you all have a brain, but that makes Trey McBride the clear-cut tight end 1. And let me explain why that is even more true with some facts. Even before Zach Ertz got injured, in the past few weeks, his snaps have been decreasing. He saw 70, then 50, then 50 again. And the opposite has been happening for Trey McBride. He's been increasing his snaps every week, even outside of the Ertz injury. And in the absence of Ertz last week when he was injured, Trey McBride saw 82% of the snaps. He was the clear-cut tight end 1, the only tight end they used. He will continue to be the #1 guy at the tight end position, and he's going to be even more valuable once Kyler Murray comes back in the next coming weeks. And it really is any point now. In this game, he saw 14 targets and a 30% target share. Is that going to continue every week? Probably not. That is going to make him a tight end 1 on the season. But we can still expect really high and good usage because on 40% of the plays that Trey McBride was on the field, he ran a route on all of them. And that is very high for a tight end, considering they spend a lot of their time on the field blocking for run or pass plays. But no, he was running routes, he was involved, and he was used. Again, he's only going to be more valuable once Kyler Murray comes back. He could very easily be a short-term league-winning tight end until Zach Ertz comes back. And even when he does come back, he will have a role, especially if he does great. I'm looking to buy in on this offense. If you can get Kyler Murray on the waivers still, most definitely go ahead and do it. He is an elite fantasy quarterback. If you can buy low on James Conner, do it. If you can get Trey McBride on the waivers, do it. Will this offense be a top 5 offense in the league? No, but Kyler Murray really does help these fantasy options. But speaking of league-winning tight ends, another guy that we need to add, if you haven't already, is Jake Ferguson, and I don't know how he's still rostered and available in over 50% of leagues. This is a true sleeper. This guy has been increasing his routes and snaps every single week since the beginning of the season. It is not hard to predict that he's going to be a good tight end this season. In week 2, he had 62, then 67, then 73, then 84, then 86% of the routes run out of this tight end position last week. And because of that increase in snaps and routes run for the entirety of the season, that led him to his 4 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown last week. And this usage was in a blowout from the start, and he was still on the field during the blowout. After the blowout, he was a very important part of this offense. That performance is more than enough to put him as a top 10 tight end on the season because, let's be honest, the tight end position is really a low bar to meet, but he is also top 5 in tight end red zone usage. He has 5 targets this season inside the 5-yard line, and 11 of his targets have been inside the red zone, which makes a 33% target share in total on his season average to be a red zone target. So that just means these touchdowns are not flukes. He's been consistently used in the red zone. They should be more common and recurring for him. He also has a great fantasy football playoff schedule, so if you are looking for some of that, you can get him for that reason as well. But now is also the time we need to go in and buy some rookie wide receivers, guys like Jonathan Mingo or Quentin Johnston, and let me go over them really quickly and why they're actually worth a roster spot. Coming out of the bye week for the Panthers, Jonathan Mingo led this team in routes run and snaps, yes, over Adam Thielen. And this led him to 5 targets, 4 receptions, and 60 yards on the day. And he's seen a pretty decent target share all year long, but if we look at his snaps, he's been a crucial part of this offense since the beginning. The usage will come. It also helps that after the bye week, we see an increase in efficiency for Bryce Young. He completed a better percentage of passes, and he was just overall a better quarterback this week. Mingo is a super fast and athletic wide receiver that they drafted with the 39th overall pick last year. He has the draft capital to be a guy we can trust later down the line of the season, and he has a pretty favorable next few weeks for his schedule, so if you want to pick him up, you can do it, but he's not a guy that we necessarily need to be running to the waivers and grabbing as soon as possible. You might be able to keep your eye on the radar for him for the next couple weeks before he's just untouchable. But if we're talking about go at him now, Quentin Johnston is going to be that guy. Everybody has given up on him. He was drafted and he had an 80% roster percentage, and now it's all the way down to 25, but now he does not have a chance to whether he wants to shine or not in this offense because Josh Palmer went down with injury last week. Now this injury is not going to be too serious for Palmer. He did end up coming back in the game, but it is going to be some sort of a risk and something we have to monitor. But that led Quentin Johnston to see a season high 70% of the snaps and have his best game of the season by far. Not to mention Mike Williams is out for the season. We already know that, but this offense is one that we need to be buying in on when we have the chance. Yes, Quentin Johnston hasn't been the best producer on the snaps he's had so far this season, but this still is an offense that is top 10 in pretty much every single offensive metric. They have Justin Herbert. It's an offense that we want to rally behind for fantasy football. There's a lot of opportunity here. There's probably only a couple more weeks we can go ahead and get him on our roster, especially if Joshua Palmer is going to continue to deal with some kind of injury. So you guys should pick him up if you have the chance. But that is going to finish off this video for the waiver wire must adds. I appreciate you guys watching all the way through, and if you did, make sure to have your post notifications on because I'm going to be dropping a video of the waiver wire traps tomorrow. You don't want to miss that. I'll see you in that video.